Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bells Beyond podcast by Bell Sisters. My name is Masichi, and I am your beloved host. And at Bell Sisters, we are a community-driven social enterprise building support systems for women entrepreneurs. And our community fosters safe spaces where these women can form genuine connections and grow together. And today we have Lisa. Lisa is a founder and she's the award-winning author of Go. At this time, Lisa is called to speak about leadership in seasons of reinvention, which basically means, rebuilding your identity, your career, and your sense of self after everything you thought was stable changes. So, welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Lisa. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I had a pretty traditional career start coming out of school. I studied engineering and I went into a large multinational company when I graduated. That's what moved me out from Detroit to California to start out in Silicon Valley. And from there, I worked across a multinational tech company for 10 years and also in the industrial automation industry for another 8. So I've definitely had a lot of experience navigating large, complex businesses and systems. Before I turned 40, in fact, I had never worked for anywhere that had less than 25,000 employees. But I found myself called more towards entrepreneurship, not because of chasing it for being an entrepreneur's sake, but because I was really drawn to the amount of impact and autonomy that it could provide, especially as I became a working mother, and my responsibilities piled up outside of the workplace as well as inside, because I was at that point a director of a $6 billion profit and loss center responsible for their revenue for hybrid cloud. And it was a lot of late nights and lots of intense pressure, as you can imagine. And so, with 2 children under the age of 5 and a health condition myself, and that level of responsibility in the office, something had to give. So that was my out. That gave me my chance to be able to chase the things that were so valuable to me. Um, but be able to shed some of the things that just were bureaucratic and overwhelming in that stage of life. And so I saw some areas where problems weren't being solved well, especially where women and children and underrepresented groups were overlooked. And entrepreneurship became that vehicle for me to be able to act out of conviction instead of waiting for permission to show up and do something about it, especially in the areas that I feel called to work in, specifically around human trafficking and
Mhm.
disrupting that using artificial intelligence, which is my area of expertise and what I did my TED Talk on.
Okay, so I know you said you wanted to make more impact, but would you say that there was a defining moment that apparently made you go into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, there was. And I wrote about this in my book. I wrote Go Reboot Your Life and excuse me, Reboot Your Career in 90 Days. The Reboot Your Life title is for the podcast. But I wrote that book because I was at one of those inflection points back in 2017 where my core values and what I had built my brand and my leadership identity on were no longer in alignment with where I was
Mm-hmm.
working.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of those dark nights of the soul moments where you got everything you dreamed of, and now you've delivered this project, and there's no more funding to do anything more in this space, and you have to go back to maybe a smaller version of your life and your leadership than you've been living for a couple of years. And I just wasn't ready to go back to selling servers to make money for money's sake. At that time, it felt like a really secure, financially rewarding thing to turn your nose up against, especially as somebody who, as I mentioned, had a lot of responsibilities at home with young children. But after we saw the impact that we could have on closing the gap of getting reports of crimes against children and the worst days of their lives to law enforcement faster from tech companies to get that down from a 30-day turnaround time down to 24 hours by using technology and building tools that can allow detectives to be at the moments that matter faster. I just couldn't sell out and go back to just doing a job. And so that's really what pushed me towards entrepreneurship was how could I set the culture? How could I lead out of my values of integrity? Because I know that when I double down and triple down on my strengths and I
Mm-hmm.
spend 80% of my time in my areas of excellence, that's when I've been able to make um, systemic change that lives beyond me, that results in a legacy that I'll be proud of. And as I mentioned, we started this work back almost 10 years ago now, and I can look back on that and know the inflection points that I we touched as a team because I certainly did not conquer this mountain even close to alone. But with that said, I now know that there are a million children in this world that have been recovered faster from the hands of a dangerous adult
Mm-hmm.
because of the technology we
Oh,
built. And there's 100,000 children that were reported missing in America that were recovered from human trafficking in the US alone that were children that I know we touched that technology. And those are the things that keep me moving forward when the world can feel a little bit overwhelming. I know that we did something to stand up for those that needed someone to notice what was going on around them, to make the invisible visible, and to make meaningful and real systemic change for people that are the most marginalized in our communities, which are homeless women and children who tend to be the victims of these crimes.
Lisa, I am just intrigued by listening to you and by listening to what you do. Your company, your tech seems to have, or is also making a lot of impact. How did you come up with the idea and what were the challenges that you faced even starting up? Because I know now you said it's been 10 years, but I'm pretty sure it's not a bed of roses. I'm pretty sure there are challenges. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I'm pretty sure there are, a couple of things that you look back and you think to yourself, oh my God, can I keep doing this?
Oh, how many days do you have? Yes, of course. We're all female founders. We know these pain points, and we also know that the difference between the best day of your life and the worst day of your life is whatever the last email was you got from your beta customer or your investor or your client, and it's taking your day a whole new direction, and it may change two or three times a day. So yes, with that said, I had plenty of inflection points that were influenced by all of this. One that really stands out to me though, is just the value of having this experience of stepping out and being a founder,
Mhm.
stepping out of maybe a traditional role that's been granted to you and creating your own opportunity. I think that is the magic of where I started to embody my power again in a more meaningful way because it was more authentic. It wasn't something that was being bestowed on me. It was something that I was living. And that came from this transformation of stepping into entrepreneurship after the age of 40. It's not something I dreamed of doing. I did not grow up envisioning becoming an entrepreneur. I
Mhm.
just knew that the money had dried up. From as an entrepreneur, we were able to create and raise $4 million to
Mhm.
revitalize that whole data center for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is the congressionally mandated location where this crime is reported by law enforcement, technology companies, and the public. We also knew that the project had wrapped and we had done everything we had committed to, and there wasn't more money coming down the pike to do that. So in order to do that, we had to go raise it, and that's when I realized that some of the skills that I had as a professional problem solver, as a professional, having done that in business development for big companies for 15 years by that time, played pretty well to creating my own company. And when
Mhm.
I could build the vision of what it could look like, the impact that we could have, and the talent that was drawn to solving this problem. And I mean, I did not come up with a lick of this by myself. It was a collaboration between the data scientists, the principal engineers,
Mhm.
the technical program managers, the legal teams. I mean, this was a collaboration across Google, Microsoft, Intel, uh, all the big nonprofits in the space. It truly was being able to cast a vision of what a future could look like and mobilize a group of people that are equally as invested in making that future a reality as you are. And they were so patient because we were all chasing a mission and an impact. We weren't chasing a title or
Mhm.
competing. And that's how we created this vision of what it could be because everybody brought like their little corner of what their area of excellence
Yep.
was and we put it all together and the result was greater than the sum of the parts. And it was a team of probably, 40 to 50 people all in, all said and done. I mean, if you had a big conference room at one of these big tech companies, we'd all fit in one of them back in the day. I
Mhm.
think these teams have all grown quite a bit since then. There's been a lot more out there, and the public domain around content moderation and how do people deal with illegal stuff on these platforms now. There's been a lot of penalties paid even in court publicly. But a decade ago, to answer your question, I left this because all of that information that we all now know because it's public record was not publicly known then, but I knew
Mhm.
it. And the fact that one of our customers, which is a very large company that I will not name here, threatened to pull their business or have an impact to our business and call our CEO if we revisited trying to modify the Communication Decency Act 230 legislation to remove the blanket immunity for people to say or do whatever they want on platforms and not have any legal responsibility for the platform providers. So that's what basically gives immunity to all these platforms for people doing very illegal things on them. Um, it was a threat, and my decision at that point was if we can't all agree that the rape of children at scale is not an acceptable cost of doing business,
Mhm.
I'm taking out my ball and I'm leaving the field. Like,
Mhm.
you've got to be kidding me. This is not a tweener. This isn't
Mhm.
a no-brainer. I sat in the court next to the lawyer that had to bring the case on behalf of the 1,700 children.
Mhm.
Documentation that that one company had knowingly helped to traffic. Like these aren't questionable ethics questions.
Yeah.
These are so obvious. And I just feel like everybody's hiding under slippery slope conversations, and I couldn't tolerate it anymore. And so, thank goodness my ex-husband happened to grow up in Silicon Valley. He knew about startups. He supported me in stepping out to do that.
Mhm.
Um, I thought that when I stepped out, I would be homeless and poor and nobody would follow me. None of that happened. I got to accept a global award on stage at the Stevie Awards for Women in Business in New York
Wow.
City, heart of Times
Mhm.
Square, in um, in 2024 for a Lifetime Achievement Award for the work that we did at Minor Guard, my AI ethics consulting firm, which is what I still do to this day as a contributor, as a wise elder of tech. I consult for companies like Meta and Microsoft and some of their digital crimes and legal organizations on how to deal with terms of service violations and making sure you get the most egregious things off. And I'm now leading the AI Safety Commission for the Global Council on Responsible AI and really enjoying giving back to the community, making sure that we get to auditable standards that we can start to use to make sure that we are all building a tech future that we want to live in at the end of this grand experiment.
Lisa, you are doing so amazing. As I'm listening to you talk, I'm like super intrigued. I'm like, oh my God, she has done so much. I guess one thing I'm wondering is the work that you do, it can be intense and it can be a little, it can it can bring up a lot of emotions.
Yes.
Especially, dealing with, the company had to deal with that threatened that made a threat. Also just seeing things that are happening to kids, and sometimes you might probably think to yourself, God forbid, this happens to my kid. So in situations like that, how do you, kind of step back and take care of yourself? Because it's a lot. It's a lot just being an entrepreneur in general.
You
Now,
are not wrong, and your intuition is spot on. I appreciate the very thoughtful question. Honestly, I did not understand what secondary trauma was or that it was something that I could be susceptible to. I don't have a history of this crime in my background, so I thought, why not me? Especially when I was invited in to the room by the, former CIO of the federal marshals when they say, you know, I think we can go do this. Are you in? I just said yes. I didn't understand what that meant. And unfortunately, after 2 years of being hands-on in the data and building these tools and fundraising for this work, I did experience some pretty severe PTSD and did need to take a lot of time to slow down and learn some of those wellness practices. It's actually one of the things that I use foundationally in my executive coaching practice. That was memorialized in my book, actually, because I had to learn it for myself first before I could share it with others.
mm,
And, what I've realized is along the way is I'm in it for the long game. I now know what my triggers are. I know where I have to be careful. For me, it's victim stories. I've been I have friends that have been trafficked. I engage with people and collaborate with them that have lived through unthinkable things.
mhm,
And I have to be really, really careful what I let in my space now. I know that there is a cost to doing this work,
mhm,
and my nervous system has already paid the price. So the answer to you and all of this is I learned where my boundaries are. I hold them firmly. I recognize where I can add value for the long run, and I stay in those areas because I don't want one more person traumatized to the level that I had to be in order to be effective moving in this space. I don't think anybody that was early in this really understood what we were all getting into.
yeah,
But I do know because I am a mother that ever, and especially deeply after doing this work, not every child is lucky enough to be born into a functional family.
yes,
And for those 65 million reports that were received back in 2020, well, the last time I engaged hands-on with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children,
mhm,
it wasn't going to be on my watch that somebody that was waiting to be found didn't didn't get discovered.
yeah,
Not on my watch. So I wish I would have known more upfront before I got involved, but now I know that there are ways to effectively work in a space that can be hard for the long haul, and I know how to do that better. And and that's why I do a lot of board work now, where I'm not the operator anymore. I'm not
yeah,
the one running the company anymore. And I get to sit on 4 different company boards for private AI companies, one in healthcare, one in the areas of automotive. I also get to work with supply chain optimization tools and also even some cool things that are happening in the ag space in this area. And so between that level of being able to be intellectually engaged and staying current in AI, and then my work on the board with Three Strands Global Foundation, which is a foundation that is focused in on human trafficking prevention
mhm,
and reintegration services for people that have been victims of this crime. I know that way I can continue to stay in the fight and scale it instead of getting overwhelmed by the sadness of it and seeping into it. So, my top 3 tips for people that are trying to work on something hard but want to make sure you don't let it overtake you this way is a few key things. I really enjoy a daily walk. I like to see the tops of the trees and the blues of the sky and remind myself I'm not responsible for making the
mhm.
whole world spin as much as my brain would like to tell me that I'm powerful. Yeah, I'm just a person and you're just a person and all of this does not sit on our shoulders. That's your
Mm.
That's your trauma talking.
Yeah.
Um, the second thing is being able to pick up a phone to a friend that's been there. I think, sometimes it makes me laugh when founders think that I'm doing them a favor by advising for them because it's completely reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there are just some things that you have to live through before you can fully understand them.
Yeah.
And being a female founder of a company in general is one of those things. And then you layer on anything that's a little bit trickier, it can get even worse. And what I love about having this history of doing this work and being able to look at and step back on the mental wellness is in my areas of AI where it's like, oh my God, being a founder is so hard. The only people that can understand me and commiserate primarily are men, right? Because they're the ones living these lives. So you realize they have the same insecurities, they have the same fears. They just don't call it like a certain word and they don't have
Yeah.
conferences about how to get over it. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess my answer is, walk in with the confidence of at least a mediocre white man because you are definitely outperforming that no matter how you feel like you're failing as a female founder because we just hold ourselves to completely different standards.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, you've got to get some play in your life. There were so many years that I did nothing but just keep my children alive, keep my career alive, try to keep my marriage alive, and I forgot to keep my spirit alive. So these days I take dance lessons and I signed up for a trainer and I'm working on feeling strong again. And
Mm-hmm.
those things allow me to stay in the game as a human, not just as somebody that's hustling for their worth. And I think those are ways that everybody can remind ourselves that we are our companies. If we are not here, nothing persists without us. And you're never going to have those innovative breakthroughs if you're always on grind and you're not valuing rest and recovery.
Okay, so I love that you have certain practices that you engage in to help you and help in your wellness. Because again, I think as founders, we're always on a go, go, go mode.
Mhm.
You forget to take a break, you forget to rest, you forget to just sit back and breathe in, you know. But I'm really glad that you are able to get those in. Now, we've kind of talked about ways to handle I guess I would say, uh, emotionally negative part of your business. Now, what about the happy part? What would you say are the happiest times that you've had in your business?
Oh gosh, there are more than I can count. The happiest times in my business was honestly has been since I exited the business. Watching everyone continue to grow and make impact as leaders themselves in their chosen fields has been the most fulfilling parts of this. So, we ran Minor Guard from 2017 to 2018, and then we exited into a larger player in the market with Bark Technologies for our Android roadmap and continued. We brought the product roadmap in-house to Apple, where my co-founder continued to develop that out from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to check out more about that, you can check out my website, lisathea.com, where you can see my TED Talk, bringing light to dark places online using AI to disrupt human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, being able to watch, one of our data scientists is now he runs his own consulting firm and he is a key collaborator with Interpol, building the most cutting edge tech tools alongside some of the best tech talent out there to make sure that the good guys have the advantage and making sure
Mm-hmm.
that we can protect our children. Um, Watching some of our executives that were our sponsors writing their biographies now and reading that the project that we all worked on was the most meaningful of their career. Staying in touch with everybody, not because we have to, because none of us work together. We're not paid to collaborate anymore, but we all want to because we all know we made something meaningful and awe-inspiring happen in the world, even if everybody doesn't know, we know. And there's such a hunger for more mission and
Mm-hmm.
meaning and purpose in people's lives these days. I think, that's what I want to bring to everybody is, if there is a way that you can put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable and just say, I'll lead, you'd be surprised who will be putting your path to follow if it's something that you feel called to do. For
Mm,
me, I am one generation post the Holocaust. Um, and my life was defined by a failed genocide. And I think that it's really important that whatever you feel personally called to do, for me, that is to say something when I see good people suffering and
mm,
make sure that I do my part, because that's how tragedies happen, is when good
yeah,
people stand by.
but yeah,
I knew that this was my calling. And so whatever your calling is, maybe it's the environment, maybe it's elder care, maybe it's healthcare, whatever that is, I just inspire you to do something with it.
definitely do your calling, guys. So Lisa, you did talk about your exit. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, I did a pretty simple aqua hire. We got to a delicate stage in our company. My co-founder had been at full-time at Apple in a pretty senior role. I was full-time at Intel in a pretty senior role. I left first. Apple gave him a sabbatical to go build out our prototype because they were watching what we were building very closely, because the goal
Mhm,
was eventually acquisition. Unfortunately, as we got 9 months into the relationship, some things that he was supposed to get in writing didn't come, and it became clear that Apple was concerned we were maybe building something that could compete with something they may build in the future.
mm,
Not what I expected. And so I decided to go into a more established Android space. And that's
mm,
where I did my acquihire into Bark Technologies, which was a really nice marriage because they not only cover the topics that I was building tech for, but a broader range of online safety for children. So things like cyberbullying and drug and alcohol awareness for parents. But the most meaningful in my mind, they had a pro bono policy of donating their technology to American school systems. And when I was there, at least, I think they had covered over 33,000 US school districts with technology that would flag if there were warnings of school shootings that were imminent. And the year that I was there, they prevented 151 credible threats in partnership with the FBI. So I feel that that's what I encourage people as
mm,
I kind of talk through these things is, it felt like the most devastating day of the world when I learned that Apple was doing this. I couldn't believe that this was even, why would anybody give a hoot about what I'm doing, right?
yeah.
But it steered us towards more impact. Apple rebuilt it from scratch in-house, and now is a standard offering through iOS. What we were trying to build from every phone since the iPhone 10. And that change came before my kids hit their teenage years, and I can now go buy them a phone off the shelf that I know how to change the
Mm,
settings to, that they won't become a victim of
so
this crime. And
that is,
that's the best gift I could be given.
yeah, that is wonderful. So, I mean, so the marriage with Apple obviously didn't really work out or turn out
No,
like
it did
that.
not.
Yeah. So what would you tell the listeners, things to look out for if, their goal is to get acquired or if they're trying to enter into some sort of partnership or marriage? What would you advise them to look out for or to do or the things they can put in place?
I think the only advice that I can give, because trust me, I've spent many nights reflecting on what I learned from that, because that was brutal. I think what I will say is this: what I've learned as a founder, which is probably the most valuable lesson, which is to delay the decisions I make as long as humanly possible. Always wait for more information and more data if you have time.
Mhm.
If I would have thought that was even a possibility, I would have never built. And had we not built, we wouldn't have been able to inspire a roadmap for a major multinational tech company to solve a real world issue that was taking out children and getting them put on sex offender registries before they're 18 years old and basically ruining the rest of their lives. And um, yeah, I think it's probably at the end of the day why I wrote my book Go. It is when you get really clear on your why you're doing what you're doing, and how you can contribute in a meaningful way, these
Mhm.
things just become things that you have to react to. And so, yes, it was devastating. I wish it never happened, but had I known what was going to happen, we would have never tried. And had we never tried, we would have never failed. And had we never failed, they probably would have never built it.
Yeah.
So, fine by me. I sold my company. I had a really good job for a couple years in my earnout. I got to do some really amazing travel and partnership deals under that role, including and up to a partnership deal with the parent company for TikTok, and got to go to Beijing and sign a partnership deal and go visit the Great Wall of China. And we made kids safer in the process. And I got my founder stripes in the process. And now I just get to work with incredible visionaries on a regular basis, not being the one to run the company anymore, but being the one to help them navigate through some of the rough terrain ahead, like when Apple pulls something like that on you. And it's about being a community, being there for each other, and the podcast that you've built here in that community is exactly what it's all about because we all go through it and it's rough, and you need other people that get it to lift you up during those times.
Yeah. No, but I think I would say even with everything that happened, you still had a pretty good ending, a pretty happy ending, would you
I
say?
would say so. Yeah, I if you would have told me when I was 16 years old that my career would evolve to grow to have this level of impact, I would be in awe and I wouldn't believe you. Honestly, I wouldn't even think to dream this big.
Mhm.
It was because of my co-founder Hassan Mohamedul Hassan, who saw something bigger than I did throughout this whole process, that we had this level of opportunity and success. And I dedicated my book to him because unfortunately we lost Hassan due to a COVID-induced heart attack in 2022. And at the age of 45, he was my co-founder, my original angel investor, and the inspiration for my book, so that we can scale our message together of healing the world one company at a time together.
Oh, I'm really sorry for your loss. He sounds like an amazing, amazing person.
The best they ever made.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa, for that advice and for just telling us all of that. So now, as we're wrapping up, what advice would you give to a woman who is stepping into entrepreneurship for the first time?
Remember that we all have a list of questions that we go home and look up after the meetings because we don't understand what people said. There's a lot of translations and transferable skills to maybe what you were doing before you were running your own business, and people use a lot of jargon, so don't let it intimidate you. You'll get used to it as you're around it. Um, I think also we need your lived experience and your different point of view in the world to build the next generation of products and services that people actually want to um, be able to buy and engage with. I know as a woman, I don't want a world that was only designed by one small group of privileged men. It's going to be very underwhelming to meet my needs. And so just remember when we're moving at the rate we're moving with AI and how innovation's changing and how leadership is changing, nobody's well prepared for this. So why not you? Step into your power, step into your leadership, and triple down because change is not going to slow down. It's going to speed up, and let's go lead.
Thank you, Lisa. I love what you said about people using a lot of jargons because I think when I first got into but like tech, because I used to be an application developer before I started my business, and just even being in tech, doing some accelerator programs, all the things they were saying, they talk about the safe, they talk. I'm just like, what?
Oh my gosh,
I
so
have
much
no
jargon.
I have no idea what this is. So I like that you talked about that.
It's literally in my book for that reason. I feel like they just do it to intimidate
I
people and
think
make them feel
so too.
welcomed.
I
And I'm
think
like, wait a minute. I went to engineering school and I don't know what you're talking about. I've been listening to you for 8 months. This is just blowhard bullshit. And it was, by the way. They're just using fancy words to seem important.
yes, they just say all those things, and I'm like, why not just say speak in simpler terms? You don't have to.
Exactly. Because then they can't charge as much because everybody will
Yeah.
realize they're just saying stuff that you already know.
Yes, yes, but hey, I mean, you made it through. I'm still here. I'm still going, and I definitely will also make it through. So we got this.
Yes, we got this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on the days you don't, turn to a podcast, call a friend, you know, go spoil yourself at Starbucks, but just keep going. Stay in the room. That's all that matters.
Just keep going, just keep going. Thank you so much, Lisa. This has been such an amazing conversation. I love, you sharing your story with us. I loved the some of the lessons that you gave. So thank you for being part of this conversation. This is exactly why spaces like this matter. And we will end it here. And I'll
Thank you so much. I had such a pleasure and a good time talking to you. Appreciate the opportunity.
thank you. And guys, we will see you all in the next episode.